Hey guys, it's MBSC1 again, and I just want to talk about what we've learned from the states that happened this weekend. So, I have a list of the decks that won here, and so these are all the decks that won. So we have Yveltal Darkrai, one Kabalion Landorus Zekrom Garbodor, one Plasma deck with Kyurem Focus instead of Lugia one, one Tool Drop deck one, many Plasma, or not many, couple or so Plasma one Yveltal Garbodor, and a lot of Blastoise. So, the two decks that were the most common were Blastoise and Darkrai Yveltal, and Blastoise was like a lot more common than Darkrai Yveltal, and I think the reason it did the best, or common as getting first place, is what I mean. So I think the reason it did the best is because people realized that a lot of people were going to be playing Darkrai Yveltal, and that Blastoise has a pretty good matchup against it. And so they ran Blastoise to counter it. And it also has just good all around matchups. Against everything really. And the only really bad matchups it has is against like Yveltal Garbodor, which isn't very popular right now anyway, but I love it. And then Tool Drop and Virizion Genesect. And the Virizion Genesect you don't have to really worry about anymore because a lot of people aren't running that. Just because it just can't really compete with everything now. It didn't win any of the states, not one. And a couple of them did make top eight. It looks like the ones that I'm going off the topcut.net, their post about who did well in top eight and stuff like that, and it looks like at one states, three Virizion Genesect made top eight, and they were all running it with Drifloon, which I thought was really interesting. So maybe those guys are like in a group and they all knew that Plasma was going to be really popular or something like that. But anyway, none of them won. So that means that the deck obviously has some difficulty with something that's popular, and I think that's straight Yveltal. It seems like straight Yveltal that runs Spiritomb has a pretty good matchup against Virizion Genesect, and I think that's probably why it's going down in play too. But basically, one of the things we've learned is that Blastoise has a good matchup against Darkrai Yveltal. Um, if you didn't know that already, or something like that, there's videos and proof really that it has a good matchup against Darkrai Yveltal. If you look at a lot of these, top eight, you can see that Darkrai Yveltal did well, but didn't do well if Blastoise was in the top eight. So, for example, I've got Arkansas right here. Darkrai Yveltal won that one, but there was only one Blastoise in the top eight. That one's weird. Then we have Delaware. Darkrai Yveltal won that one, but there was no Blastoise in the top eight. And you go to like Idaho. That's a bad example actually. And then like Indiana, Blastoise won that, and there was no Darkrai Yveltal on the top. So it's like when there's a good, like more than one Blastoise in the top, and there's more than one Yveltal on the top, Blastoise ends up on top. And then we saw very little Emboar. Emboar didn't win any of them, which I thought was really interesting. I thought it probably had something to do with the fact that Virizion Genesect wasn't very played. So Emboar just kind of gets worse. But, I mean, you can argue against that too. I think if you just have a standard meta where there's no Virizion Genesect, Blastoise is definitely a better option than Raybor. But one person made the argument to me that you can control damage output better against Darkrai Yveltal with Emboar because you can Inferno Fang it, you can go twice and do 120 to like a Sableye or a Bouffalant. And with Blastoise, you would have to use Keldeo to hit those numbers. And then if you're doing that with Keldeo, then they can use Yveltal and do a lot of damage and take knockouts easier. And I didn't think about that. I thought that was pretty interesting. So maybe Raybor is a little bit better when Darkrai Yveltal is the most popular deck. So today I went to League just to get more testing in, and I was using Darkrai Yveltal like always. The only changes I've made, if you've seen the video with my deck list, is I've got one more Yveltal now that I cut Ashana for, and I'm thinking about taking out my Enhanced Hammer for a red card. And the reason being, Plasma wasn't really that popular. It only, like I said, it only won, or I'm not sure actually how many it won. I can count real quick. I've got the thread right in front of me. So Plasma Kyurem won one, excuse me, and it looks like regular Plasma only won one too. Got this right. One. No, two Plasma with Lugia one. Okay, so yeah, and there's not a ton of it in top eight. Like it seems a lot less popular than I expected it to be because Muscle Band's really good and stuff. But I guess something is beating it. I'm not really sure what because I thought Yveltal had kind of a bad matchup against Plasma because of the weakness with Thunderous and that kind of thing. But maybe they're like people are taking Shadow Circle or something. I'm not sure, but something is obviously beating Plasma, and maybe it's Blastoise. It seems like Blastoise has a fairly good matchup against that deck too, and they stopped running. A lot of them stopped running Frozen City, so that just helps the matchup more if you're the Blastoise player. And then we also saw a pretty good amount of Aromatisse Big Basics and Aromatisse Plasma decks. None of them won though, so again, Blastoise beats it. And so does Darkrai Yveltal, I think. It also depends on the basics. Like it's such a deck you can have so much creativity with. With the basics, it's kind of hard to say like what the matchups are because it differs a lot. But yeah, there's the Plasma version and the Big Basics version, and then there's also the version where you run it with Xerneas, but no one really runs that. No one really runs that competitive and does well with it competitively at least. And then there's also like colorless attackers version. But basically the ones that are doing well are the Plasma version and the Big Basics version. And some people just kind of mix the two. They just kind of use Thunderous for energy acceleration and power up other basics like Yveltal and Genesect and just random stuff. It's a really cool deck. I kind of like it. The only reason I just don't like it is honestly just because it centers around a fairy type Pokemon, and I really hate fairies. But that's a really stupid reason, to be honest. So yeah, what to run for the next city or the next states is basically the question. So since we saw Blastoise do well, you might assume that more people are going to play Blastoise because they saw it do well, and then by thinking that you could play Virizion Genesect to counter it. And so then Virizion Genesect would be more popular, and maybe you should have text for that instead. You could also see that you think more people are going to play Virizion Genesect because of Blastoise's popularity, and then go with Raybor. And what I think to do is it's hard to tell what level of metagame predictions people are making, because there's levels of it. There's the first level, which is go with a deck that did well, and there's the second one, which is counter the deck that did well, and then there's the third level, which is counter the counters of the deck that did well, and then after the fourth, it's kind of ridiculous. And so I still love the idea of Darkrai Yveltal because on those three decks, which is Virizion Genesect, Blastoise, and Raybor, I've got really good or good matchups against all of them. So Virizion Genesect seems like I haven't tested it a ton, but it seems like my matchup is like 55 or 60 versus their 45 or 40. So I beat it a pretty good amount of the time, just not every time. And then against Blastoise and Raybor, with this deck at least, the list I have, it's pretty much an auto win. I've only lost to Blastoise one time so far as I've been playing this, and I've won like 7. And the one time I lost was against a deck that ran 3 Tool Scrapper and 1 Dowsing. And you know that if you watch my other videos. But anyway, yeah, so I think that is probably the deck to play. And then, but that's not all. You still have to worry about decks like Plasma and then Big Basics, or Aromatisse Big Basics and Plasma Aromatisse, and then straight Darkrai, Yveltal, and then what else is there? I think that's pretty much all the good decks, to be honest. There was also, the other thing that I thought was really interesting is the guy that did well with Cobalion, Landorus, Zekrom, Garbodor. And I think the Zekrom tech seems like a weird idea, but he ran blends with it too, so he could actually take advantage of the Bolt Strike. So yeah, I think it's more like a deck full of big basic tech Pokemon. It's really interesting. I thought that was a cool idea. And then Plasma Kyurem I think did well because Plasma Kyurem is better against Darkrai Yveltal than the Lugia Plasma version is because Lugia Plasma version takes a lot more energy, so you have to use a lot more energy, and then the Yveltal player can just respond with an Evil Ball and do a lot of damage, as compared to the regular Plasma version, which takes up less energy and it's a non-EX, so they don't it doesn't matter as much if it gets knocked out because it's a non-EX. And then the other thing was Tool Drop. 1-1, and I think the reason Tool Drop won, well, I was gonna say actually because of Blastoise's popularity. I think that's all. For now, this video is getting kind of long, so I'll end it here. Yeah, never mind the Tool Drop thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.